welcome back. I'm laughing because I just got done with one of my classes, my family systems therapy class, and I was inspired to do this video topic from a recent meeting I had with one of my supervisors. So recently, in supervision, we actually got a chance to. Okay, I got all these messages coming through. We got a chance to look at one of our recorded sessions. Now, so far, I've actually recorded 4 of my sessions with my clients, and in supervision recently, we looked at our sessions, and of course, we get feedback from our supervisor, and y'all know my supervisor had the nerve to tell me that I lack empathy. I'm like, I'm floored by that. Like, I lack empathy. She was like, yeah, by the look and from looking at your video and your interaction with your client. And I think okay, let me finish saying what she was saying. She was like, by the look, the interaction that you had with your client, it looks like you lack empathy. And I'm like, that can't be right. But I said, you know what? I'm going to do something different. Because I think I find myself recently with professors and supervisors, I feel like they're trying to say certain things to try to trigger a certain reaction and make me defensive, right? And I know I can be pretty defensive. I mean, I could be whatever I want to be. I have many different ways of being and acting, right? And so I feel like they're trying to say certain things to get a reaction out of me. So I said, you know what, let me do something different. Let me not react. Let me just listen. I don't even respond. I ain't even respond. I just say, okay. Okay. Right? And so, and it made me think, because I'm like, why would she say that? Like, that's so not appropriate. That's so not me. That's so not relevant. That's so not nothing. I'm just like, where are you getting this from? And I'm like, it has to be something else other than that, because I think I had an idea of what it is, because it was tied to something else that is going on at that site. And so I think that was like her way of gaining a little bit of leverage over me in the situation because they have an upcoming site visit, and something happened that actually, it was something that happened on their part, essentially, that went wrong. And so I think her way of gaining a certain kind of leverage over the situation, because they do have an upcoming site visit, is to try to find a fault in me. And so she goes to say, oh, she don't think that I have empathy. She say, you lack empathy. Now, first I'm going to speak on this whole thing about people, especially supervisors or whatever, or even a professor, speaking in terms of black and white language. I don't really like that. Like, they'll be like, oh, you're this, or you're that, as if you only can be one way or the other. And I like to, being the kind of person I am, I like to speak in very specific, concrete terms. No person is all this, all bad, or all good, or no person does do this, or they don't do this. I would like to put it on a continuum. I like to put behavior on a continuum, on a Likert scale, so to speak, right? Like something that can be measured. It's not that, oh, a person is just all angry, or a person is just defensive, or a person is guarded. No. I like to quantify that behavior and really analyze it and examine it, because behavior can change depending on one's environment, depending on antecedents to that behavior, depending on a number of factors, situational factors. And to assume that a person is guarded, like, for example, right? Because that's something that seems to be coming up. Oh, you're guarded. I'm just like, really? It's situational, because I actually mentioned that in my one of my previous videos, and I was talking about emotionality and cultural differences in psychotherapy, and how one of my professors was like, oh, you're guarded. I'm just like, dude, you just saying that because another student said that, and he said that because he was angry. He was speaking from his emotions. Like, it's kind of complicated, you guys. I know y'all like, what in the world is she talking about? So I really can't go into too much detail or whatever, because I don't really want to, really. And it really is more about my experience, I guess, in the program, and a lot of you guys are just like, what is she talking about, right? So I'm just kind of going on the surface in terms of what happened. But yeah, there's some things that happened, and it was just a series of events. And so my professor just sided with the student, I guess, to make the student feel better, and be like, oh yeah, you're guarded. And that just made me think, like, situations like that, I'm always inspired by interactions that I have with people. And just situations like that, it just, yeah, it inspires me to do these videos, and just to talk, and just to further process what happened. I like to process by myself. I'm going to go into another video, separate video after this one, about positive psychology and my perspective on psychology in general and just psychotherapy. So stay tuned, you guys. It's important. Stay tuned. But yeah, it's just like people assign these labels, and everything. Like I say, it's on a continuum. Nobody is one way or the other, and it's situation specific, and it's a certain degree or extent to which that person manifests that particular behavior in a given situation. So yes, as a person who is very conscientious of herself, very meticulous, because I think it's important to use the right adjectives. It's important to use the right descriptor words when describing someone, especially when you have a position of power over them, of authority, because that person is going to take in what you're saying because you hold a position of authority over them. It's almost like what you say is like God, God speaking, which, I mean, I don't really take it like that, but a lot of times people do take it like that, and I think subconsciously it kind of comes off that way to people, or whether you want to receive it that way or not. So me, as a psychologist in training, yes, that's my take on it, that it's important that we are careful how we label clients. It's important we've got to be careful how we assign labels to, supervisees, people that we're supervising. It's important in general, just in relationships, of all people, psychologists and therapists should be aware of this kind of stuff, right? As it relates to treating, how we treat other people. I mean, a lot of it, I think, for psychologists is just book knowledge, like they know it, but when it comes to putting it into practice, they bad at it. They're terrible, because I'm seeing this in relation to my supervisors. It's like, don't put labels. And then, I mean, this is the thing, because I'm going to talk about a little bit more about this in my next video, but I'm going to kind of touch briefly on it. This whole thing about labeling people. Oh, you're guarded, or you're this, or, dude, say the labels. I don't need the labels. If you want to move me into a certain position or into a certain space, there's a way to do that. Or anybody. It's a more effective way to do that. But labeling a person, no. No. Quantifying their behavior, yes. Saying that, okay, well, I noticed that when in this particular situation, you were a little bit less empathic, and I'm wondering, could you have been a little bit more empathic? But to say a person lacks empathy, dude, that's big. That's big, y'all, because the thing about empathy, it's a tool that therapists use to effect change. It's a tool that therapists use to establish a relationship with the client. If I lack empathy, I don't think I would be as far as I am in the process with the clients that I'm treating right now. I wouldn't be as far in life if I lack empathy. Like, dude, that would make me like more of an antisocial person. If I to say a person lacks empathy, I lack empathy. No, don't assign me that label. If anything, I found that sometimes I may have too much empathy, because I find myself crying when other people are crying. That's that's like on a whole other extreme, right? So I know in the beginning of the video I didn't talk about what empathy is, and I wanted to address the definition that Merriam-Webster dictionary assigns to empathy. According to the Merriam-Webster dictionary, empathy is defined as the ability to have an awareness, an understanding, a sensitivity, and to be able to vicariously experience a person's feelings or emotions. That's empathy according to Merriam-Webster dictionary. And I'm like, okay, that sounds good. The words sound fancy and all right. But at the same time, that's Merriam-Webster dictionary is not a psychologist. They're not speaking from a psychological viewpoint. And the first three I don't have a problem with. So the ability to be able to be aware, to understand, and to be sensitive to one's emotions, I agree. But the whole vicariously experiencing, okay, I think that needs to be operationalized, because according to some psychologists, they would say, oh, you're supposed to feel what the client is feeling. And one can argue, no. If I felt every single emotion what a client is feeling, how would I be able to do therapy? That means if a client is feeling angry, I become angry. If a client is feeling sad and hurt and is crying, then I need to feel sad, hurt, and start crying. No, that's not how therapy works. Because somebody got to be the voice of reason in the room. And if you're all too emotionally riled up, how can you think logically? How can you be able to apply theory to practice if you're all in your emotions with the client the whole entire time? So yes, this thing is on a continuum, you guys. And that's what I would appreciate if a supervisor would come to me and maybe place me on the continuum in terms of level of empathy in her mind and back it up with theory, coming from her perspective or whatever theoretical orientation she's coming from. But just to throw it out there and be like, you like empathy? That's bad supervision in my book. Now, of course, I didn't tell her that, and I don't think she watches my videos. I mean, I don't think most people don't watch my videos unless they somehow stumbled across it, but I don't advertise. One thing about me, I don't advertise my YouTube channel to my professors, to my classmates, to my colleagues, at my practicum site. I don't do that. I keep it separate. Now, people are curious because they're like, oh, what do you do when you spare time? Or, who are you? So I may say, okay, I vlog. And then they ask questions, oh, what do you vlog about? And then they want to know the link to my vlog and I give it to them. That's only because they have asked me. But I don't go around advertising my vlog. I don't do that. Even out in just regular life, I don't do that. I don't go doing that. I don't have to. Now, when I'm on Facebook, yes, I do promote my vlog sometimes, but you'll see on my page that it's very rare that I actually post a link to my YouTube channel on Facebook. I don't have to. I feel like people, if they're interested, they will come to my channel, and I get new subscribers every day. So I'm not in a rush or a push to advertise my vlog. But people are curious, and I just share it with them. So if she sees this, hey, this is me. That's the thing about me. People are like, oh, you're being fake or you're being, no. Y'all can get me when you see my vlog. This is just me because I feel like this is a space where I can be myself and where I can inspire other people and where I can teach. Hey, take it or leave it. So, yeah, I would prefer that approach. Let's pull out some empathy scales or something. Like, we got to be a little bit more exact. Because for you to just sit up here and throw a label on me, no. I don't like to do that with clients either. That's just my approach. I don't like it done to me. So you know how I am with clients. I don't like to just throw stuff out there unless it's backed with evidence. And then I don't necessarily say that a person is this. They may have behavior that's exhibiting certain kind of features of that, a flavor of that, but just to throw it out there and define that person by that, like, no, that's not true. And even for her to say that, oh, throughout your interview you lack empathy, or I saw that you were less empathic, we gotta define that. That's like I said, going back to the Webster Dictionary. I think she's speaking from the Webster Dictionary definition, and according to that, like, that's, I don't think that's what a therapist's role is, to necessarily vicariously experience what a client is feeling. That means that every single emotion, whatever the client experienced in the room, then the therapist is experiencing. I do think that there's a way for the therapist to center him or herself in the client's shoes, so you can understand what the client is feeling, and you're with them as they are feeling that, right? So of course, it's not like you're just totally unaffected by the client's feelings. You feel to a certain extent what the client is feeling, but there is a kind of, there is an appropriate boundary there, if that makes sense. Because if you feel everything that person feels, that would make you enmesh from a family systems perspective. I mean, I like to integrate all of different theories together to better serve my clients, and I think that my supervisor and sometimes psychologists, they only work from one particular perspective. And she kind of threw out, oh, I work from psychodynamic. That's great. That's my theoretical perspective too. But to only work within one theory or perspective and kind of neglect other aspects that could be fitting and appropriate to the situation, you're shortchanging yourself. Because from a family systems perspective, adopting or adapting every single feeling or emotion that another person is feeling, let's say within a family system, family unit, that's unhealthy. Everything the client feels, boom, you jump right there. No, that doesn't mean that you can't build rapport and have an understanding for what your client is going through just because you have a different feeling. The client may express the feeling of jealousy. Do I need to just jump in and feel jealous too? No, I don't have to. I can be very much centered in myself, and that's actually more psychodynamic if she want to say she's speaking from a psychodynamic perspective. I just have a different point of view, but because I didn't want to come off in my supervision as defensive, because it seems like that's how people look at black people, as, oh, you being defensive, just because you have a different perspective. One thing about Danielle, I have a mind of my own. Y'all gonna have to accept that. And I also really don't have a problem articulating that. And I got good practice at a very early age. I can say that much, even with my parents, to express myself, and be myself. I've always been like my dad. He created an environment for that and welcome for me to just be myself. Even if I have a different point of view, I don't have to think and behave and feel like other people just because they feel that way. So being that it was a concern of mine after I experienced that supervision recently, I actually brought it up in my family systems class today. And that's why I think I started this video smiling, because my professor, we right here. And it's not that he agreed with everything I say. I'm pretty sure he doesn't. He even will say, no, I don't really think so. But it's the delivery. It's his delivery that I admire. He's very respectful of a person's delivery, and he is very much family systems. He's very much rooted in the family systems theory, and you can get that vibe from him, like he's a happy man, his life is good. Whereas some people who are your supervisors or your superior or professors, you like, your life is messed up, because for the way you coming at me, something ain't right with you, And that's the thing about me, like, it's like, not that I'm trying to do this, but if something is, I can sense when something ain't right, and I'm going to point it out to the person, and then it's the thing is, like, the moment you point something out to your superior about what they're doing, they get defensive, and then they want like, oh, well, you don't have a respect for authority. There they go with the labeling again, now I have conduct disorder, now I'm oppositional defiant. It's just like, that's bullshit. Hold on. Because even my professor, when I said that to him, I say, well, recently I had this, we were talking about emotions, and I forget the exact kind of section we were on in my family systems class, but discussing Mnuchin, who's a family therapy theorist, and we were talking about emotions and stuff and feelings. And oh yeah, he was talking about empathic listening and active listening, and he was saying the difference between active listening, just listening for content, and listening for what's being said, versus empathic listening is kind of more of a connection, right? And in response to that, it made me think like about my most recent experience with my supervisor, and I brought it up and I said, well, in my supervision, with my supervisor, we looked at my video recording, and she responded to me and said that I lack empathy. And immediately, like, he was like, huh? Because he's like, okay, that's what she said, but then he knows me because I've been in his class for how many weeks now? This is week number 10, I think. And he's like, he's not getting that vibe from me. He's like, he never got that vibe from me that I don't have empathy. So it's interesting how, there we go. It's interesting how you have one person may have this perception of you, and then another person may have a totally different perception. It's not that I'm behaving differently in different environments. No, because I behave the same way. Because I'm professional in school, and I'm professional at my site. I'm the same way. So for him to say that, he's like, I don't get that vibe from you that you lack empathy. It's like, no. And then even other classmates started to come, and it was like, no, I don't get that vibe from you either. It's like, and then actually one of my female classmates, she was like, actually, I think they probably misunderstand it because that's just your personality. You have more of a neutral, kind of laid back. And I was like, oh my gosh, she took the words right out of my mouth. Like, how it's funny how some people can get you, and other people, they have like this suspicion. And it really speaks to countertransference. They are projecting some shit that they got going on in their life. They're projecting onto you, so they seeing you through this bad, filtered, terrible lens. I'm like, we're gonna have issues if you're looking at me through a bad lens, which is gonna be my next topic video that I'm gonna talk to you guys about right after this one. Then we already on a bad foot. Looking at me through a bad lens. It's not to say that you cannot speak to me, interact with me, and notice certain things, ways that I can improve, and offer constructive criticism. I'm open to constructive. I've received lots of constructive criticism throughout my program, so it's not about that. That's why I have to say this for my next video, you guys, because I'm going to go in a little bit more detail what I mean by that. Like, a person's delivery, if you're always just criticizing it, you do this, and you bad, and you... Dude, that can become a little bit annoying. So I'm going to talk about that in my next video. But it's interesting how my classmate, they got me just like, no, we won't see you like that. And it's not that they were just trying to kiss ass or agree with me. That's not the case, because they disagree with me. The same person, she's spoken up and said a difference of opinion plenty of times, She don't have a problem doing that. So it's not about that. It's just how they interact with me. The vibe that they get from me is not that I lack empathy. I've shown lots of empathy to my classmates here in the program. So don't go there, because that's more like going on the other extreme, that I lack empathy, versus, okay, I think perhaps maybe you can be more empathic, and by that I mean this. And actually, I don't think that ever really was discussed, so I kind of assumed that, okay, she meant maybe show more facial, because she mentioned my face and how, it seemed like you had the same face throughout the session. My face is kind of looking concerned, like that, throughout session. And she's like, she looked at my face, and my face, I had the same facial expression. I guess she wanted me to just have all these weird, I don't know, totally become an actor in the middle of the session, and I'm just like, that's not really being authentic. But I remember another feedback she gave to another intern was that the other intern, she said, had too many facial expressions. So I'm like, somebody confused. Because either facial expressions are good throughout the session or they're not. But she was like, oh, person had too many facial expressions. I'm just like, dude. It sounds like to me you got a control issue. It ain't so much me. Because when you sit here nitpicking on little small stuff, that's you, man. That's you. And she already said how she got control issues, and it comes out in her marriage and stuff like that. She done revealed a lot of stuff about herself, and I'm like, that's you. I ain't say that to her, but in my mind, I'm like, that's you, man. and you projecting your motherfucking shit out on me. You know, because I know what the hell I got, and I'm like, nah, man. I think it go real deep too, because it's just something about, I don't know, I said this in my other videos, something about like black people, man. We just, this negativity, man. Just, you can't point out positive stuff in a person. All this hatred, like self-hate. I don't know, man. That's a whole nother video, but yeah, the whole thing about empathy. So I'm like, nah, man, you ain't gonna sit up here and try to put my coattail on that. Find something else that's actually more plausible, that makes more sense. But to say that I like empathy, like, no, we ain't about to go there. That's untrue. That's inaccurate. No, because I bet you my clients will have a totally different perspective. And on the sheets, when you read, because my clients, we have like session summaries, so the clients actually get to give us feedback of the session after each session. And you know, it's a form they complete. And on the form, generally speaking, I'm getting good feedback. They're saying they feel understood. They feel validated. So how the hell are you going to sit up here and tell me I like empathy in that session? Because I'm the same way across different sessions. For the most part, I'm there, I'm present. And I'm not guarded. That's this whole thing about these words, these labels that people are using about me. Nah, don't do that. Unless it's accurate. You gotta be dead on. You come at me, man, you gotta be dead on, because I don't refute the truth. The truth is the truth. Person can't deny the truth. But you gotta be very careful with that. So I'm in this video because I have one more point to say, that when I said that to my professor, and you know, he laughed and he was like, I don't get that from you. And the other classmates, you know, agreed with him. He actually said to me, which really was inspiring, that he said to me today was, actually, Bowen would love you. He would love you as a psychological trainee. And I'm like, that mean a lot to me when he said that. I'm like, wow. Now for you guys who are like, who the hell is Bowen? He is one of the leading family therapy theorists out there. He's big. He's a very big name in family systems therapy. Big name. And my professor was telling me a little bit about him and his perspective on this whole thing about empathy and therapy. And he was saying how he actually vouched for therapists to be less emotional. Not to say, okay, you're just emotionally blunted and you don't have no kind of connection with the client. That's not what I'm saying. But he said that not to get so entangled in what the client is feeling. To almost maintain a sense of neutrality with your emotion in the sessions, so that you're not influencing the client and telling them how they should feel, so to speak. And I'm like, aha, that does sound like me, you know. And it's not that I don't have empathy, because I can identify what a client is feeling, because I've been through a lot my own self. So when a client is giving me certain content and telling me certain stories, I know what feeling that goes along with that. But even for me to say that I know what feeling that goes along with that, therapists can't be so sure, because just because from a therapist's perspective you might feel angry, the therapist might be, the client actually might feel relief, might feel joy, might feel happiness. So that's one error that a lot of therapists make, is they get too confident and too sure in their ability to be able to empathize with their clients, and they be way off. Because that happens to me. People are like, oh, well, you must feel sad, or that must be sad because you don't have a desire to have deep connections or make deep connections with people out here in California. I'm just like, it ain't nothing sad about me. For you to, that's how you would feel. You're projecting your shit onto me. That's how you feel. Because number one, me and you are two different people. Number one, I'm not from California. I'm not from Los Angeles. I moved here from New York City in 2016. These are people who are born and raised in LA. They're going to probably be here and live here and get licensed here. That's them. So, of course, from their perspective, they want to have friends out here. I'm like, for me to say that I'm not seeking to build deep connections out here does not mean that I'm not open to it. You get what I'm saying? So, it bothers me, because I'm like, y'all know this stuff, right? Like, y'all know the whole the danger of dichotomous thinking, black and white thinking, but they don't put this shit into practice. Stop assuming shit. Just because a person says one thing, they don't mean the opposite. What kind of logic thinking is that? That's not logical. I need to take a logics class. Just because a person says A doesn't mean that they're supposed to B. What kind of logic are y'all, would y'all have, man? As psychologists, it kills me. It's just, because I'm like, y'all, the way y'all think, you're so narrow-minded. You think so linearly. Thank God I don't think like that. Thank God I'm always curious to know a person as opposed to assuming. You know, a person may give me something and, you know, I'm not so quick to think that, oh, I know what they mean. No, you don't. You know, I have this deeper sense of curiosity to learn more and not to think that I have more insight than another person about their own life. I can provide my own insight, but even that is still shaped by my own personal experiences, which is part of that is me projecting my view onto the client. And yes, that's what they want us to do in therapy, right? But we still need to be cautious in doing that, because I don't mean that we're completely right in doing so. So I thank my professor for telling me that. It's like, yeah, Bowen would love you. So neutrality of emotion. You don't have to be so entangled in what a person is feeling all the time. That, oh, they come in and they feel this way, so you got to match their feeling. Come on. You don't have, my thing is this, you don't have to match a client's feeling to know or have an idea or a sense of what they could be feeling. And you always check in to make sure that your interpretation of what you think they're feeling is correct. You don't just be like, oh, you feel angry. Oh, you must feel this and leave it at that. No, let the client be the expert in the room of their insight. That's how I like to work from. You know, yes, the client is coming to you for insight and for help. And you have all this knowledge and experience and training that you bring into the room, but you don't want to like be so overbearing, like, oh, I know everything, you know, what do you know? You know, no, the client knows something. I know this from my own personal experience in therapy and just being just a person, period, and the feeling of being misunderstood because the other person thinks that just because they have all these degrees, then they have this authority over knowing what's right, and a lot of times they be dead ass wrong. But on that note, I'm gonna go into my next video topic. Thank you guys for tuning in. That's pretty much what I had to say with respect to this whole thing about empathy. And I lack empathy. I'm like, that's bullshit. But hey, I gotta go. Catch you guys in the next one. Bye.